Hi, this is Tim Anderson. I'm programming coordinator here at the 29th Annual Florida Film Festival, and this is our Filmmaker Q&A session for Shorts Program number 2, sponsored by the Orlando Film Commission. So thank you guys for joining us, and we hope you had a chance to see the movies in our virtual festival or online or on the big screen at NZN yesterday. Let me take a minute to introduce the filmmakers that are here in attendance. So beginning on the I guess the right, that doesn't make any sense at all, but whatever, we're going with it. Beck, tell us a little bit about your film and yourself.
Cool. My name is Beck Kitsis, and I'm the writer-director of the short film, The Three Men You Meet at Night. A very long title, doesn't fit in my little name box up here, but it's a short film about a teen girl's walk home alone at night.
Awesome. We'll go over to Quinn.
Hello, my name's Quinn Else. I'm the writer and director of Irwin, which is a short film about a real military base in California called Fort Irwin, and a amputee veteran who begins working there to reconcile his PTSD.
Awesome. Bridget.
Hi, I'm Bridget Moloney. I'm the writer and director of Blocks, which is an existential comedy about the mother of 2 young children who start spontaneously vomiting plastic toy blocks.
And Talia.
Hi, I'm Talia Osteen. I am the writer and director of the short film The Shabbos Goy, which is a short comedy about a young Orthodox Jewish girl who's has an embarrassing thing happen that causes her to have to collide with somebody who she normally wouldn't interact with, and you'll see what happens.
So I just want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. This is our actual first one of these that we're recording, and hopefully it'll look like it's going well. But I guess I just have the basic question I want to have everybody, and maybe just go in the order that you introduced yourselves is the genesis of the project. You know, what brought you to this film?
Yeah, I mean, I have been really interested in the horror genre for a while now, but I always felt kind of like I was on the outside of it because a lot of the stories that were being told weren't the things that I actually found scary. I think that you don't really have to look to the supernatural to find things that are scary, that they're actually in real life, and there are neighbors, and there are these great or frightening stories from when I was growing up that I just wanted to bring to the screen. So it was a really simple idea. It was just, what if we took a look at something that a lot of people have done, but then just use the horror genre to explore it through that lens and see all the different kind of frightening things a girl might experience when she's walking home alone.
That's interesting to me because last year we actually looked at a film that you produced called The Rat. And it does sort of the same thing. It's sort of it deals with this sort of like internal fear about, you know, the stuff that's going on and how far you can sort of affect it, you know, while you're going through it.
Yeah, I guess I should rewind and say that I've been writing or co-writing and producing a feature film called Strawberry Summer for a while now. We started writing it, I think, in 2015 or 16, and it's a horror film about a young girl's coming of age. And so The Rat and The Three Men You Meet at Night were both kind of born out of that feature film and kind of within the same world. So Whit Carlin also worked on this film as a producer.
Awesome. Quinn, yours is Fort Irwin's very unique. I actually saw it last year at Fantastic Fest for the first time, and it blew me away. So
Thank you, and thanks for having it at the festival. I would say that I'm very inspired by locations, and I try and write stories based around real places. In a very strange way, I had an animation professor who in California who told me about Fort Irwin, the military base, which is maybe 3 hours outside of Los Angeles. And he told me that he had made a lot of money in the mid-2000s acting as a Afghani villager in these incredibly elaborate military exercises that the U.S. Army does. So at Fort Irwin, they've built these fake villages that look like Iraq or Afghanistan, and they'll conduct these very elaborate and explosive training exercises for multiple weeks, and they do it all the time. So I kind of just started exploring what that world was, and then I learned that very rarely they will hire amputee veterans to participate in these military training exercises. And they're very like traumatic and gory training exercises because they're trying to train soldiers to administer life-saving aid. So the idea that someone could suffer the trauma of fighting, you know, in one of the conflicts in the Middle East and then come back to the United States and find themselves in a situation where they very directly relive that experience seemed like a very dramatic and confusing and terrifying thing to depict. So that's what I tried to do.
I think you did a phenomenal job with it. I'm actually very curious as a kind of a follow-up to that. Yours is actually, we've got two films that are actually playing in the Florida Film Festival this year. The other one is called Feeling Through, that actually uses an actor that is deafblind. And your actor is he a military veteran? I mean, I know he is a double amputee.
Yeah, Christian is a military veteran who lost his legs in Iraq in 2006. But he's always wanted to act. So I came out finding him in like an acting agency rather than looking directly for amputee veterans, because we ended up auditioning quite a few different amputee actors. I didn't necessarily have an objective that it had to be a veteran, but there was something about Christian that was very not how you usually see veterans depicted. Like there was something very kind and sensitive about him that I thought translated well, because the movie's very loud.
And he's great. And I mean, it's really almost a silent performance. I mean, he's doing all of this really like internalized. It's really wonderful. Bridget, my trauma with Legos is mostly stepping on my daughter's Legos in the middle of the night. So I can't wait to hear where this came from.
Yeah, well, I have two young children who are prominently featured now when I'm in my office. And I wanted to make something that worked as a metaphor for a visual metaphor for how I felt with early parenting. And I had this image of a woman cleaning up breakfast and vomiting Legos and then just cleaning them off and putting them away. And that like felt to me like my lived experience. And so I originally just wrote it as like a one sheet, just the joke, the visual part. And then I was like, no, I think I could open this up. And so I made it as part of AFI's directing workshop for women. And, but yeah, the genesis was just this image I had that felt like a good visual way of telling this felt experience I had.
Yeah, I think your scripting on this is really incredibly tight, and it's very, very funny. I think all of us probably fell on the floor laughing when they smelled the Legos and building blocks. I guess Lego doesn't want to start suing.
No, I've been so nervous, but it's gotten over there and I'm not in trouble, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Lego people have seen it and it's fine.
So then actually a friend of mine had that years ago where he dropped something and he was like, I really can't say this what it is, but it ended up actually getting all the way to the people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who loved it anyway. And, it's not done in malice. It's a riot.
No, well, it seemed at first it was okay. It seemed like it was fair use at first because it's absurd.
Yeah.
But then because AFI is AFI, we had to clear everything. And the rights lawyer was like, oh no, because of choking hazards. It's actually not. It's not parody or satire. Like this is serious. So we ended up like removing the words from everything as much as we could, and using whatever. Fine, it went great.
I feel like there could have been a disclaimer at the end, just like that's on a Lego box that just says "Warning for small children choking."
Yes, exactly.
It just said blocks and then under it a little subheadline.
Yeah.
Talia. Welcome. Hi. You're local, kind of.
Well, it's my hometown. I'm in LA now, but I grew up in Longwood.
Well, that's very exciting for us to have somebody back. So tell me about the Shabbos Goy.
So I just love telling stories that kind of subvert stereotypes and, like you set up expectations and then totally upend them. Because I feel like that's where like the best comedy is, but also the best lessons and in life. So I found that opportunity with the Jewish community here in LA, particularly the Orthodox Jewish community, of which I'm not myself Orthodox, but my bandmate and the guy that I composed music with, who also we did the music for the short as well, is modern Orthodox. So I have, and when we were on tour, we had all these constraints of the Sabbath or Shabbos. And so I always found like the little workarounds and things around it to be funny, while also like very much having respect for the meaning behind taking that pause, which I think we could all really use. So yeah, I just wanted to explore that a bit. And then I had the opportunity to do it through this program called Powder Keg Fuse, which it was the inaugural program. And Paul Feig, who's an incredible comedy writer, director, and producer, he launched it. And we each were tasked with we had to pitch for it. And if the pitch was about a comedy about a micro community in LA. So this kind of felt like the perfect story to tell through that.
No, it's a riot. Matthew and I program a Jewish film festival annually. We're actually trying to figure out how to program it now, in the middle of doing this one. And
wow.
So it's one of those things where we, when we saw it, we were like, this is a slam dunk movie anyway, but if it doesn't make it into Florida, we know exactly where it's going, no matter what the Jay's committee says on it. This is a Jewish film festival. And I imagine it would do very well on the micro circuit that is the Jewish festival. But
we are starting to do the Jewish festivals now, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's got just enough raunchy humor elements to it that a good, a Jewish audience that's willing to, not be too conservative about their comedy will get quite a kick out of it as well. Matthew, did you have anything you wanted to interject or toss in here?
Not yet. I mean, you guys a lot of the questions I've had so far are being answered in everybody's responses. So, I wanted to ask about, Paul Feig, and I wanted to ask about how Fort Irwin was actually conceived and constructed, and, would it have happened without the lead actor, things like that. But everybody's touching on everything so far, so. I'll wave when I have something smart to inject.
I don't want you to feel left out.
No, I'm good.
I know you're in the other room. You can throw things at the wall at me, and I'll know. Okay. Well, you guys have hopefully had the opportunity to see each other's films, and I know some of you know each other outside of this Zoom window. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for each other about the projects. I'm just, like I said, we're really excited to get a chance to do this. When we put together a shorts program every year, it's a real puzzle to try to piece these films together in a way that we think flows. And you guys all brought something really unique to the table for this program. And I just, I'm excited we're doing this. So you guys have any thoughts or anything you want to say specifically about your film, or I open the forum to you for a moment.
I have a question for Beck, which is, it was about some of the camera language in your film, and I was wondering, it feels like, well, this isn't a question. I just started speaking without thinking, which is a signature move of mine, but I really noticed I'll make it a question. I really noticed, in a good way, some of the choices about what was felt handheld to me when she's walking, and then some of the more like formal, more like horror trope camera moves. And I was wondering if you could say a little something about that. See, I made it a question.
Yes, that's a great question, and one I haven't been asked before. So working with the cinematographer Adam Kolodny, I'd been a big fan of his. He's shot mostly music videos for bands like Japanese Breakfast and like other New York and Philly indie bands. And so I was really excited to get to do this with him. And he just brought a lot of really interesting visual language to the movie. And so I think one of the things that we worked on together was trying to, like you said, play on horror conventions, like surveillance shots that are kind of like wide from behind versus like when we go close and are like with her, and it's more handheld, like you said. And so kind of giving some of her, it's a hard movie since there's so little dialogue to tell us how she's exactly feeling in different moments. And so when we go to the handheld shots, it's a little bit easier to kind of convey that. But I did want it to feel as slick as it could, but then, you know, realizing that having a film take place almost entirely at night and having like 40 setups that I wanted to do is kind of a little bit overly ambitious. So that was a fun thing to learn as a first-time director. And so I think sometimes when we're going to the handheld shots too, it's because it's quicker and easier than, you know, setting up like a different type of rig. But I think that I also learned that it's more effective, and in the future I hope to use more handheld. I think I definitely don't feel the need to like try to create that slick image anymore. In 2020, everybody's shooting handheld and it looks great. So I have a question also for Bridget. How did you cast? Like, how did you find the people in your short? They're all such wonderful actors, and I'm just curious if you worked with agents or if you did it, you knew people. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, it was Claire, who's the lead, is one of my best friends from college, and we've worked together before, and she's terrific. And she was on Grimm on NBC for like 6 years, 5 years, which is like not, you know, it's funny because like that was a hit show that not many people she knows watched. But she, and then Mark, who plays her husband, is one of my good friend's husbands. And I kept being like, I wonder if I could get someone like Mark Webber. And then my husband was like, you know Mark, like, why are you doing that? You can literally text him right now. I was like, that's a great point. And then the kids are my kids. And then the friends are like my mom friends who are improvisers, with a couple exceptions. Trey Harris is friends with my producer, and we were like, do you want to do this? And then the only person, a lot of it actually was helped along by the mom group that Talia and I are both in, because there are a lot of performers in there too. But my friend who I met through that group is the casting director, and I was like, I need someone to, the Ruha Taslimi role, the role of her friend in the park, was the only person that I like cast. And I said, like, I need someone who's really funny and feels different than Claire. And she was like, oh, I've been looking for something for this woman. And we had never met. And I watched their reel and was like, all right, let's go. So, and luckily Ruha wanted to do it. So it was really like people I knew. And then a little bit casting director magic.
I think that's
it really helps to have great actors in your life. Yeah. Makes everything easier.
I think that's actually a good question for Quinn and Talia as well, because one of the things that we have is, you know, the festival, especially now that we're on virtuals, we have so many film students in Central Florida that come out to this, and all of them are making short films because they're in school. And the biggest thing to run into that, I mean, I've been espousing this for forever, even when I was running a local showcase, was that casting is so key. If you have no money at all to try to pull off shorts, you've got to get really like real performers. Like, what they deliver has got to sell your movie, because if all the other shortcomings that you may be running into from budget constraints, time constraints, you know, and all of that, or location constraints. So, you know, going out there and finding it, and obviously two of you guys did this through AFI. So there's a little bit more of a, you know, ability to bring in some name talent because of the location and because of the reputation that AFI has through the program. But yeah, Quinn, if you could talk a little bit about kind of the overall casting. I know we did already touch a little bit on your lead, and then Talia, the same as you.
Yeah, so I think I ended up making 6 films at AFI, but the second year is kind of when you make the thesis film, and it's the only one that you can release to the world. So I've always kind of worked with non-actors. So luckily, I had the ability to audition a lot of people for Christian's role, because there's a group in Los Angeles, but they also represent actors all over the United States, called Mediability, and they represent amputee and disabled actors. So we ended up auditioning, I don't know, maybe 15 different actors, because there's quite a few actors living in Los Angeles. So I felt very lucky to be able to audition a bunch of different people. And then everyone else in the film was just actors I'd already worked with. Okay. Most of them through those like 5 films that I made in the 2 years.
And Talia, how about you?
Yeah, so I thought of Milana pretty early on in writing the script. I knew her, I had met her when I first moved back to LA after working in New York for a while, and actually at a Shabbat dinner. And then I had seen her all over the 18, and then like she's in This Is Us and Silicon Valley, and she was just everywhere. And I think she's such a talented actress, and she also writes and directs herself. But she kind of was a no-brainer, and so I just reached out to her personally. And then, but for the rest of the roles, we had a casting director, which was wonderful, obviously very helpful. Especially, you know, we were looking for people who would be authentically, would feel authentic in the Orthodox Jewish community. And when I hired the guy who plays her fiance, I saw his name and I was like, he was at least raised Orthodox. And so the way that he did the lines, I was like, yeah, he knows. There's something about it that was just organic. And then after I hired him, he reached out to me and he was like, Talia, like, I was like, wait a minute, you're that doobog? His father is the Chabad rabbi from my community. Oh. And my like family went to their synagogue for a few years when I was little. Nice. And it was very funny. I didn't know it when I hired him, but it's a small Jewish world. And
that's a ride at Disney, isn't it?
Exactly. But yes, the casting is key. And then we did have a chemistry test between Milana, who plays Chana, and a couple of different actors who played Davian, and that helped to make the decision and seeing just how they played off of each other.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And they have another thing where, again, there's so much of the unspokenness in the performances. There's so much of what's going on for them. And actually, that's an interesting element, both of Beck, Quinn, and your film, is that a lot of the internalization that occurs inside of the characters that isn't necessarily spoken outright. So yeah, they did a great job. I think it's wonderful.
Thanks. Yeah, they did great.
I think, I guess one of the kind of other curious things that I would have, and I'm trying to play the advocate for film school students that might be watching this, would be to sort of talk about the duration of your guys' shoots. Like, how long did you guys spend shooting it? Like, and we'll do the same thing. We'll start with Beck, and I'm just wondering, did you do that in one night?
No, we had originally scheduled to do it in like 1.5 nights, and then like giving some room for people to sleep so we could shoot again in the next daytime, because we had to get that daytime stuff as well. So it was like a 3-day shoot, but we actually got shut down on our second day for a second, and had to do some improv and rescheduling, because one of our cars was unregistered, and we didn't know that, one of our picture cars. So we had to figure that out pretty quickly, and shoot other things. But yeah, it was a 3-day shoot. I'd say in the future for film students, it's great not to race against the sunrise. It's a horrible feeling when it's like, 4 a.m. and you can just see the sun coming up and you're like, can we still shoot this? And can it be fixed in post? And it's like, no, it really can't be. You really just have to make sure you have darkness. So I'd say if you can shoot things that are not all taking place in one night or one day, for that matter, exteriors.
Yeah, exteriors in the course of an entire day is really bad.
Yeah, now I'm writing one that's 2 people, all one location interior, because I was like, nope, like let's try something else next time.
One lesson learned.
One light outside the window, you're fine.
Yeah.
Quinn, the same kind of for you. Obviously, the scale of where you shot is huge, and pre-recording, we talked. There was a question a little bit about your VFX too, so maybe touch on that as well.
Yeah. So we had a 4-day shoot, and then in the context of the program, we then had 2 months where we could edit it, and then we had an additional 2-day reshoot.
Okay.
And I would say that, especially with a lot of film programs, you do have a more loose schedule in a good way. And like, if we hadn't had reshoots, the film would have been terrible. So I think like, and that was mostly the way I'd written the script. Like I didn't fully realize there was like dream sequences and stuff that got completely removed. And I don't think I fully appreciated that until we had shot, you know, the first round, so to speak.
So did you notice the pieces you needed for the reshoot when you put the edit together? Was it just not working, or did you rethink kind of the way the story was going to go completely?
I think I eliminated a lot of elements. So I tried to simplify it a bit because it was kind of, right, the film is about him dealing with his trauma, but also in a very exotic real life location. And the original film had a lot of like hallucinatory elements, like things he was seeing that weren't there.
Okay.
And pretty much the team decided like there was enough stuff happening in reality to stimulate his story that we just needed to eliminate everything that wasn't something that he would experience in reality.
Okay, awesome. Bridget?
My shoot was 5 days and it was 11 pages. So it was very luxurious.
Yeah.
It was like not the time. And we shot in my own home, which I'll never do again.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So that saved money, but it caused much heartache. And Talia, she disappeared, she's back. We had to go somewhere because like we loaded in, but it was great. I had come from more of a run and gun background. So having the time and the money to do 5 days, like at that pace, to do 11 pages in 5 days was a nice change of pace. Yeah. Like we made our days, no sweat. So yeah.
Well, I feel your pain. I turned my bedroom, my home primary bedroom, and at the time the only bed in my house, over to film production for 2 days, and ended up sleeping on the floor of my kitchen.
Yeah.
So during that.
Mm-hmm.
Talia.
So we shot ours in a day and a half, and I squeezed the extra half day out, kicking and screaming that I need, because we had I wanted to get the exteriors. It had to be on either Shabbat or a holiday where the stores would be shut down. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't look like it was the Sabbath. And I wanted to get natural extras. So we were trying to time it when people would be going to or leaving synagogue or shul. And so we had to time the exteriors. And then, so we shot everything outside in half a day. And then we did everything else in the interior in 1 day, which was fast. But that's another time where it pays to have good actors. We didn't have to do a ton of takes.
Awesome. This is another chance I'll open it up to you guys. If you guys have any other questions for each other, or you want to come up with much better questions than I come up with, then by all means, do my job for me, make my life easier.
I would ask, with short films, it's such a different way of writing because you're trying to tell a complete story in a much shorter amount of time. But like Beck, I know you mentioned you have a longer screenplay, and I'm wondering if for all of you, were you thinking of using this as like a proof of concept for something, a longer format version of it? And how did you balance out writing it to stand on its own versus working more as like to show what you could do with a longer version?
Anyone?
Yeah, you kind of know this, Talia, but I'll answer for. I was like, I'm just making the best short I can, because I had made an independent TV pilot that had premiered at Tribeca, and then like nothing happened, and I was like, I'm not trying to sell this. I'm gonna make like the best short I can to prove that I can direct. And then it did what I wanted it to do for me, and it's been great, and it's been playing so many festivals. Thank you for having me. And it's been and I have representation, but which is like really what I was hoping to get out of it. And then while I was working on it, I was like, but what is next? And so I started thinking like this could be like a intellectual property, if not a proof of concept for a television series version. So that's what I've done, and I'm developing it. Like it's kind of happening. And so but it's like it's a high concept domestic anxiety thing, and like it's these magical realism, and it's a parenting show with metaphor or whatever. But I originally, when I set out to make it, was like, this is just I'm not going to worry about like to be continued or that it's 3 acts or whatever. I'm just going to try to make like the best short I can. And that ended up working out for me, but that doesn't always work, obviously.
Oh, that's awesome. Quinn, you have something to say? Or did
I was giving the thumbs up.
Oh, I see.
Giving the thumbs up to Bridget, but I was probably in the same boat as Bridget, where I just wanted to make the best short possible at first. But definitely the more I researched for Irwin, I've outlined it as like a TV series, kind of like a MASH type TV series, because it is the actual location of Fort Irwin brings such a diverse group of people together. And there is something very bizarre and cyclical about it, which I think could work well for a TV show. But yeah, the original objective was always just to make the best possible short.
Yeah, I feel like as a programmer, as we watch, I mean, I don't even know. I think we watched over 1,000 narrative domestic shorts this year for the festival. And I can almost always tell the proof of concept shorts. And I wouldn't peg any of your guys' shorts specifically in that, because the idea is that it has to live or die on its own. Short film is such a specific medium to tell a story that you have to hit some level of a format on it. It has to be it has to satisfy, even if the ending is unsatisfying. But it has to live and die on its own. And if it can be expanded out from that, that's always an amazing thing. And I produced a short years ago that had the same thing, which is that we had no concept whatsoever for a continuation on it. And of course, immediately when it got into festivals and agents and things were calling, we were like, so where's it go from here? And we have no idea where it goes from here, because we didn't write anything after this. It's over. So, and then of course you have to try to figure out, you have to lie and start saying, of course I know where it's going. It's going, I've got a whole thing about that. Beck, you want to talk a little bit about the feature script without giving too much away?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, it's true. Like, this was not a proof of concept for the feature either. Even with The Rat, the other short that I produced, that my writing partner made last year, we didn't even see that as a proof of concept, because it just felt it wasn't fun to take something that we've been working, like, that's like, 120 pages and try to condense it into 12 minutes. It's not doing anybody any favors. It's not doing our feature any favors. It's not doing the short any favors. So we were just like, let's make, things within this world. So I totally agree about, not trying to shove a feature into a short film. I feel like each short, I'm going to keep learning that and keep kind of trying to distill it into something simpler. And can we get even simpler next time? But yeah, the feature, it's called Strawberry Summer. It's, like I said, it's a horror film about a young girl's coming of age. So when she turns 14 and she unexpectedly gets her period at her 14th birthday pool party, it kind of kicks off all of these events, which lead her to feel paranoid and kind of deal with this increasing male gaze that she's trying to escape. It's much quieter. It sounds kind of flashy when you describe it like that, but I think most people, when they read the script, are kind of surprised to find that it's a lot quieter. We talk about it as horror 8th grade. Our goal is to kind of start in the world of drama and really kind of make you feel what it feels like to be a 14-year-old girl, and how it's not really scary how your body is changing, but what's scary is how men are changing their reactions to your bodies and kind of what they can and will do to you. And so it's kind of, it's by the third act, it's full-blown horror, and definitely inspired by movies like Repulsion, but taking issue with the creators of those movies, like
Sure.
Roman Polanski.
Well, you'd sell me on an elevator pitch of horror 8th grade. Like
Awesome.
I'd be there for that. So. Matthew, did you have something?
Yeah, you guys all mentioned, I think, Tim, you had mentioned something about, making short films, and even if there's an unsatisfying ending, I would just like to say that, particularly in this group of films, you guys are to be commended because, all these films are between 7 and 13 minutes. They tell incredibly rich stories that all have terrific endings. I mean, it's, and that certainly makes our job easier. And the one thing I did want to ask about basically is consistency of tone. And if that's something that, as directors and writers, is that constantly in your mind that does this work? Does this feel real? Is this consistent with what I'm trying to get across? Because, it's a remarkable feat when you could do that in such a small amount of time and tell such a rich story. And that's all of the films, besides you guys, the other 4 films in this program all kind of had that thing going for them. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Is there a structure you guys want to do? Maybe Talia, do you want to chime in first and work backwards from the original order?
Sure. The tone was something that I thought about in so far as like wanting to make sure that that the character's experience was always grounded, even though the conceit of it feels absurdist.
Yeah.
I mean, when people watch this, they'll have seen the shorts already.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a vibrator like right pretty quickly in that centers my short film, and so it's broad comedy in that sense, but the experience of the characters I wanted to be really grounded and feel very true for them and therefore for the audience. So I kept that in mind. But most of the time it's just about, making sure that everyone's on the same page with telling the same story. My battery's dying. That's why it keeps doing that. But I will say just to button up the other question, like if there are film students, when you're trying to showcase something, I think so much of it is like, if you have a short that has either a world or characters that people are going to want to see more of, that translates. If your story ends, and I think it sounds like all of ours have like its their own ending, and then nothing ever has to come out of it other than that because it stands on its own. But if people enjoy spending even the 7 to 13 minutes with those characters or in those worlds, there will always be a way to create more with them. Anyway, sorry, that was a
No, that's actually a phenomenally great statement, because I think that is important, and actually it's something, again, about all your films have such incredibly identifiable characters, and it's not just the leads. I mean, it's a lot of the supporting characters that exist, especially inside of Bridget and Talia's film. They're supporting characters in it. The husband, the man who the Goy, are all extraordinarily identifiable and give fully realized performances. They're flesh and blood, so real characters. So it's important. Bridget?
Yeah, so the tone, because I'm writing and directing it, I felt confident. It was my voice through and through. But then in the edit, I had to cut something I really loved, which was this whole it's in the movie, it's the slow push-in on her. It's there with all her mom friends. But before that, there was like a big scene, and it was like a lot of jokes and a lot of really great actors. And it was my attempt to show sort of the larger world she was part of and the culture of it. But in the edit, it was like I stopped the movie to do this scene, and it was killing me because I loved it, and I was so happy, and everyone did me a favor by being in it, and I just was like, oh my God, I can't cut them. And then whatever. Like I haven't been cut as an actor doing favors for people. I have, and not favors, but I was like, it just, a friend of mine who's a playwright gave me really good advice where he was like, Bridget the writer is at war with Bridget the director over this. And like, you're so close on Claire the whole movie and you're in her internal experience, and then you go out into this scene and it kills the momentum. And I was like, you're right. So I cut it, but it felt like a crazy move. And that was in the edit, but I knew like it was just going to be a better movie and the tone would be truer to what I'd already established. But that was really hard because it was already so, in my opinion, lean, that the idea of cutting that felt insane. But finally I was like, no, I have to do it. And it was for sure the right move. And because you get everything you need, in my opinion, from the push-in. So you don't need to see a whole scene of her being alienated. And like hearing people talk about, mom stuff. So I cut it. I say that ironically. It's a joke on a joke about people being dismissive of mothers. But anyway.
No, it's a good point that you bring up. I mean, obviously there's a whole adage in Hollywood of kill your babies, but I think one of those things, you nail it by saying, like, I used to tell film students all the time is that the biggest problem is that you can't possibly be the writer, director, and the editor of your own movie, like, unless you're completely insane, because those three people should have disagreements about what is the final cut of the film. And if you are the person on them, you have no perspective on doing that. And it's definitely one of those kind of things where, like, when I ever see a short and it comes through and it says written, directed, and edited by someone, I'm always just like, oh, it's going to have scenes that don't need to be in it. Guaranteed, because it's so hard. It's hard to do that. You spend all your time and your effort shooting it. But, Quinn.
I feel like, the big thing for us to kind of crack the film was just, or to have a consistency of tone was just the rhythm. So I think, like, a good structure for short films is kind of like a punchline structure, or it's like it just builds up to a single moment or a climax, I guess, right, in our case. So kind of the guiding principle is just it's all of Fort Irwin's pretty much just rising tension until the emotional climax for Christian, and then there's kind of the brief ending, But I think when we ran into problems when there were scenes that kind of distracted from that escalating tension. So if things felt too slow or too long, then that kind of complicated things.
Yeah. Beck.
Tonally, I just really wanted the whole movie to feel kind of like dreamlike. I mean, like, I always felt there's this one road that I would walk home alone at night on when I was younger, when I was growing up, and it was dark and there were no like street lights, and I always felt like I was just on a treadmill or something, and like no matter how long I walked, like I just couldn't get there to like wherever I was going. So I really wanted that to come into the movie. But I had a really similar experience as Bridget, in that, like, we filmed a whole other part of the movie, and I felt so bad for our lead actor, Stella Baker, who's incredible. I mean, it was brutal. Like, she did like many takes of hyperventilating and crying and having this kind of like nervous breakdown at the opening of the movie in a bathroom, and kind of like starting it in this different world at a party when she's leaving the party. But ultimately it just, what I really liked about that was just giving us more time to get to know the character Jess outside of the trauma, and like just kind of like making her not a cipher and like a real lived in character. But I just ultimately had to play into the idea that, like, this movie is about a walk home alone at night. So the movie starts at the street and it ends on the street. Like, you don't go home and you don't start before she's on the street. It's about the street. So that's, yeah.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, as much as I would like to keep you guys on here forever and talk for you guys just ad nauseum about everything, I guess we should wrap it up. But I want to give you guys each a chance if there's anything that you feel like you want to say about your film, or anything at all. Just one last go around before we say goodbye. You can do it in any order you want. All right, so maybe first.
Thanks for having us. Everyone, wash your hands, wear your mask, stay safe.
Good idea.
Matter. I mean, I can keep going. Don't forget to register to vote. Thank you for having us. Did I say that already?
Wear sunscreen.
Yes. This is all good life advice.
Yeah,
Talia?
thank you so much for
thank-
having us. Oh, no, yeah.
No, I was going to say the same thing. Thank you. It's an honor to be included in such great company, and congrats to all of you. And hopefully we'll all keep working and maybe work together one day. And thanks to everyone who stuck around to watch us talk about it.
Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us here on the Florida Film Festival. If you guys did miss these films in the theater, you haven't watched them yet virtually, they will be running through the end of the festival on the virtual platform on Eventive. Or if you love the shorts and you want to tell your friends about them, then by all means do that and give these filmmakers some incredible love, and keep track of what they're working on in the future, because it's a talented group here. Thanks again for joining us. And
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Tim and Matthew.
you just find how to stop recording.